can't stand YouTube videos that don't start with some playing or some sound. How about you? Hi, my name's Michael, Michael Canolan, and I'm the founder of this little YouTube channel that you found yourself on. And I'm here today to present a review, or a more comprehensive review than I have previously, of the Bloom Pocket Cello. And as a cellist of many years now, I must say that this instrument has been a huge revelation and a wonderful sort of adventure for me. And so I was wanting to do something that sort of justifies the difference and sort of talks about the elements of the instrument that cellists would be potentially interested in regards to, do I take the plunge or not? Is this instrument too different? Is this instrument going to be too radical a departure from a traditional sort of cello? Let's start by having a look at the construction of the instrument. My particular instrument was, I received it like February this year. And it's, so I've been playing it for just under a year now, I guess, with the change of the new year into 2021. Let's look at the construction of it in comparison to traditional sort of cello. So here is the instrument. As you can see, I have a microphone mounted up to it, which you'll be hearing today. So remember that you're hearing the instrument essentially from about 6 inches away. For the most part today, we're hearing the instrument very close mic'd, and with a couple of exceptions. Let's have a look at the construction of it. We can see that it differs a whole lot in the construction to a traditional cello or member of the violin family, and that's because it doesn't come from that family. It's from the Dulcimer family, and Kenneth Bloom, the maker of this instrument, that's his bag. Appalachian mountain music, Celtic music, folk music, traditional musics that have emigrated their way over to America. All of this sort of historic sort of stuff is his thing. And so very much the pocket cello grew out of his experiments and his creation of the bowed dulcimer, which is very much Ken's baby, if I could say such a thing. The pocket cello, I guess, it just sort of occurred to him that there's a lot of similarities, and potentially being a bowed instrument, we have a scale length approximately the same as the cello, so it could be potentially utilised, and so he has. And it's proved to be quietly quite popular over the years. I think there's a lot of sort of cellists who've taken the plunge. 4-string, as you can see. The instrument doesn't have the traditional belly and back, or top and back like we would on a traditional cello. It has the body and the neck are one, the top and the back are one to form a whole instrument. There is not a traditional neck as such. And so certainly right away, for a few of you as cellists, that might be off-putting to the point of maybe this is not the instrument for me, because this does involve, and I will say this ahead of time, it does involve a change of technique to a certain degree to play this instrument. It's not like you can just jump on it as a cellist and play on your cello and leap onto this and it'll feel natural to you. It does take a degree of adjustment. But I must say that, you know, the advantages far outweigh the disadvantages for me, and I don't mind this sort of thing. It's a bit of an adventure for me. I do play guitar and other string instruments as well, and so as long as you're up for a bit of work and a bit of discipline sort of practice to sort of alter and invent a technique for yourself, then you might find this instrument is the thing for you. How have I dealt with this? Well, Ken's instrument comes, as you can see, I have added a small piece of wood on there at the moment, and this is not a traditional part of the instrument. This will not come if you order the instrument. This is not part of it. This is something I've devised for myself. Very quickly I realized that there is none of that reference point that we have on the cello, which is the back of the neck, where we have that sort of fulcrum, that sort of a pivot point that we have with the back of the neck, the tip of the thumb, and the fingers on the top of the fingerboard. And that was quite a difficulty mentally and physically for me to sort of overcome. And the solution I kept coming back to in my mind was that I need some sort of reference point. I need something that gives my thumb some sort of anchor so that I get the traditional sort of, more traditional sort of cello feel. And also, well, it just so happens that I measured out, where the line of the side of the fingerboard is and cut it there. And as you might be able to see with the dot, that's fourth position. That's basically, this ends where the neck ends on a traditional cello, where your thumb would bump into the heel of the top of the body at that point when you're into fourth position. So that gives me an extra ergonomic, muscular sort of memory point to remember. Once I hit that point, that I know, right, I'm there. My hands know where they are. So for me, I think this rail, although you can probably see that I've just temporarily attached it with some blue tack, which is like removable U-tack type of stuff, just because I'm still experimenting with the placement of it and the shape of it and all of that sort of thing. But for me, I think this is an essential, and it will become a permanent part of the instrument, because it has been from the beginning. As soon as I put it on, I realised, that's much better for me. Now, that might not be everyone. I don't want to speak for all cellists and say this is going to be an essential thing for you to do. It might not be for you, but it was for me. So bear that in mind. And like I said before, it does involve some change of technique to work. Other things that are different from a traditional instrument, the scale length is different. Traditional cello, full-size cello, is 695 millimeters, almost 70 centimeters, or was it 27 and a bit inches or something like that in the old school. This one is 64 centimeters, which equates very, very closely to a 3/4 scale cello. So you must bear that in mind as well. There is a different scale of this instrument. It's not as long, string-wise. The vibrating string length is not as long as a traditional full-size cello. Personally, I must say that the string length I found quite surprising. It's 3 centimeters or 5 centimeters difference, because vertically going up the neck, the scale length doesn't feel that different. It's been more across the neck that I feel a slight sort of, it's certainly thinner slightly than a traditional full-size sort of cello neck. So there is a slight sort of diminution of scale on all levels, but certainly going up and down the neck, I don't particularly feel that as being, suddenly I'm cramped, because I do have, as you can see, big hands, and so one of the reasons I play the cello and not the violin, and so definitely we want to have something where we can get around it. Now, speaking about getting around the instrument, it does allow one huge advantage with this instrument, in that we don't have the body getting in the way, and traditionally beyond fourth position, we'd be going up into thumb position up here, because we've got this huge body and we can no longer think. With this, I find I can adapt fingering very much to sort of eradicate a lot of thumb position. Not that eradicating thumb position is a good thing, but I do a lot of improvising and a lot of playing, and I find it much easier just to continue with the fingerings that I would have used, just continue with them up the neck, and that's possible on the instrument. So that's one super advantage. One main thing that I haven't yet discussed is the fact that it doesn't have an end pin, and that's probably a big mystery. It's still a slight question mark to me as to, over time, how I will play this instrument, because I really need a reference point. If you look at Ken's videos, and I would recommend looking at the Dulcimer project on YouTube. I think that's the name of the video, and that will show you how Ken constructs these videos, but also other ones. You'll see that they play them like a gamba between the legs. Now, that is great. I have played viola da gamba. I am familiar with that technique, but the gamba is a much wider instrument, and frankly, for me, the gamba was possible to play between my legs, but if I squeeze my legs together with this thing to try and play it gamba-like, after about 2 minutes, my legs are in cramp. And so I realised very quickly that I could not play this instrument like a gamba, squeezed between my legs and played vertically. Plus, I also discovered there was issues with the back, because if I was pressing it against my body, that inhibits the vibration of the back of the instrument. And I discovered that when the instrument is on its own, without anything touching the back, like my ample stomach, that the instrument is actually louder, and so it resonates more freely. So that left a bit of a quandary and a bit of a mystery, and so I've solved that for the last, well, since I've been playing it, simply by resting the bottom of the instrument onto a piano stool, onto the edge of a piano stool. There is, at the bottom of the instrument, there is a strap mount, which I've never used, but I think I might be in future. There is a pickup, which I specified in my order, which is probably a good thing if you want to perform this through a PA system or do live rock. And there is a small pin here as part of the construction of the tailpiece. Now, resting it against a table, or resting against a stool, I should say, against mainly the jack, as long as it's soft and a curved surface, it's fine. So a piano stool is where I rest the instrument, rather than having to squeeze it between my legs. And also, if I can get myself swiveled around here, there is a left orientation, to cello playing, that sort of thing. It's sort of more over there than it is over here. And so the feeling is, for me, as I said a moment ago, I'm thinking maybe I might experiment with a leather strap off this mounting point here and around my left leg and back down to the strap again to create like a loop that would use my leg as the hanging point for the instrument, and that might work. I've also experimented with standing up and resting this instrument against it. I've got a small stand here and that works fine as well. So there's all these possibilities opening up. Yet again, think of this very much as an adventure rather than my substitute cello that I can play more conveniently. That's certainly what I would recommend to you. Now, what else do we have here? Well, I've got sympathetic strings as part of my order, which are tuned up here as part of the, I assume that these are mandolin gear tuners, both sides. They're quite small. The holes seem adequate enough to take the C and the G string. Ken provides helicore, 3/4 helicore strings as standard with the instrument. I can see myself potentially maybe wanting to change these over time, maybe for a better set or a more precise set. Just because now that I've had the joy of tuning with machine heads, be able to tune this and do very precise sort of tuning, and plus there's fine tuners here, I think these ones have a bit of play in them occasionally, and sometimes I'm finding that it's a bit of back and forth to wiggling, but comparison to pegs, it's probably 10 times quicker than pegs. Check out the bottom of here. You may notice that the bottom of the strings Ken has looped back and strung up to sort of double back the loop. I can see why. It's so that the winding of the string doesn't go up and over the top of the bridge, which would be highly detrimental to the sound. And so I can see the logic of that, but I'm going to have to do that in future if I am to change the strings. And so that's something to bear in mind. Either that or maybe shortening the tailpiece, something along those sorts of lines. Like I said, one of the main things of 3/4 scale is that this is 64 centimetres here to here. And all up, we have an instrument that's, I think, probably around sort of 75, 80 centimetres. And one of the main reasons I got this instrument as well is potentially so that I can travel with this instrument. Well, certainly so that I can travel with this instrument. I've been to Europe twice in the last few years, pre-COVID, and both times to go to seminars and things, and both times I've had to rent a cello while I'm over there, simply because I'm not rich enough to buy a seat for my cello, and certainly I'm not game enough to throw my cello into the hold of a plane in whatever sort of flight case I can get. So this instrument potentially, in a soft case, could fit into a large suitcase, or it may even be able to go into an overhead locker if you've got a particularly friendly airline who are sort of up for that sort of thing. So that's I'm looking forward to trying. It's just a bummer that I got this instrument when COVID hit. Damn. The sympathetic strings aspect of it, For me, this is a wonderful thing, and certainly my only complaint is I don't have enough of them. I'd like to have more sympathetic strings now that I've tasted the joy of them. I do play Middle Eastern music, and I play Baroque music and medieval and all sorts of stuff. And to be able to have an instrument that can tune into the key that you're in and resonate, certainly with the volume difference of the instrument, this helps enormously as well. And speaking of the volume difference, I created earlier on a short video which sort of just demonstrates with my decibel meter from about a meter away the difference in volume between the two instruments, between a full-size, regular, modern concert cello and this. And here it is. So as you can see, with the decibel meter there, which is just a quick and dirty sort of little test, but about 1 meter away, as I said, and the sound that you're hearing is just from my phone nearby the decibel meter. We're looking at an instrument that sort of is about 75, 76 as an average decibel in comparison to the cello, which, as you can see, can peak up to 87, 88 decibels. We've got almost a 10 decibel difference sometimes. Now, 10 decibels in hearing terms translates to half the volume. So that's another area of this to be aware of, that the instrument is significantly quieter. Well, I say significantly, but not terrifyingly quieter. It's maybe 2/3 to half the volume of a regular cello. Of course it is, because the volume inside the body, the ability to create bass and low end and volume and power is not there. This is, well, certainly one of my analogies in my own head that I would share with you with the way to think about this instrument is that it's almost like a retrogressive step. If you've gone from a cello, a modern steel string full-size concert cello, which is, the standard, then it's almost like going from a piano back to a harpsichord or back to a clavichord. And that's how I'd ask you to think about this, going from a modern cello back, in a sense, back to this. This is a less wieldy instrument. It's a quieter instrument. It has a rich sound, but it does not project in the same way that a modern cello will. And I've played in small trios with this now, with harp and oboe and various instruments. And this can get lost, especially down the bottom end. Consider that me speaking now is probably about 70 decibels, and a loud conversation gets up easily into the 80 decibel sort of mark. So this will get lost amongst other instruments, potentially. But I would sort of, yet again, I think of this as a different sort of instrument. It's an intimate instrument like a clavichord or a virginal or a harpsichord, an instrument designed to play in a small space. This is not a concert hall instrument. designed to fill a gigantic concert hall like Yo-Yo Ma playing Bach, who I saw last year, which was fantastic sort of stuff. Anyway, I digress. Let's have a look at some other elements of the instrument that you may be quizzical about. The dots on the neck. Should I get dots on the neck, you may be asking yourself. I'm a cellist after all. I've spent all these years teaching my muscle memory where all of these points are. Yes, please get the dots on the neck, I would say. I felt the same way as you do when I was ordering the instrument. I ummed and ahed about, do I need the dots on the neck? Surely I'm such a great cellist, I can find all of these things. Because the instrument is a completely different shape and that lacks a body, and as I said, lacks these ergonomic sort of muscular reference points the traditional cello does, suddenly your hand is in free form. And so the dots have been very good, and I'm not going to complain about them at all, and I don't feel like a simpleton for having sort of ordered them. They're a wonderful thing to have. Now, let's talk about bows. Sonically, it is very much like, for me, it very much has more of a gamba sort of sound to it. That you're hearing a lot of harmonics, the instrument's quieter, the fundamental tone is a lot quieter. And let's talk about vibrato. Now, I'm going to try and do a traditional concert vibrato. Now here is my thumb here, back here. So I've got this, but it's actually rolled over. We've got maybe a 20 degree turn or rotation in the hand. So it is possible to do a traditional sort of vibrato, but I am working quite hard at it. It speaks less until you do quite an exaggerated sort of movement. I think it's because of the rotation of the angle. For me, we're working with Baroque music and Middle Eastern stuff where vibrato is sort of more an added effect than the standard. That's fine, but if you're imagining that you're going to do a traditional romantic style modern vibrato on every note, a la most orchestral players today, you will find that it is quite inhibiting because we are, as I said, rotating the hand around a bit more. Now you can see I'm using a traditional bow. It does lend itself, being this sort of more slightly, don't want to use the word coarse, but this more sort of harmonically rich, sort of nasal sort of sound that the instrument produces lends itself to other bows as well. Standard bow that I'm using a lot at the moment, mainly because of my own personal idiosyncrasies and the music that I play and RSI issues and all sorts of stuff, is this bow. Which is a Turkish kemençe or kemenç bow, also for the Turkish cello called the yali tambur. It's finger tensioned, and for me, well, it's both underhand, sort of old Baroque sort of style, but also it sort of, well, because of the position of it, it eliminates a lot of the RSI sort of problems that I have with traditional grip. I can play quite happily with it, but I just don't have the stamina with traditional grip, especially in my thumb, which is pretty worn out these days. So yes, we get a slightly coarser sound. can get sort of a decent sort of sound using this bow. It does sort of suggest all of the things that Baroque bowing suggests, you know, more up than down. That up bow is the leading stroke rather than down, like the modern style bow. But it does work very well. The only thing that I don't get is a comparative lack of length. Which leads me to one issue about the instrument that might be a bit of a pain for some people. It's the fact that we don't have any scoops, well, like bouts within the instrument, the C bouts sort of there. So this lends itself only to a certain angle of playing, which you will have to work around. I do find myself hitting it occasionally. I try not to chastise myself about it and just get on with the playing. I think that's probably the best approach for it. In future, of course, if we could, you know, incorporate something into this, maybe that would be a wonderful sort of thing. I'm sort of, you know, well, my mind is a whir with all sorts of improvements that could be made. But as I said, for the price and for the level of advantages that it offers me as a player, you know, I can't help but sort of, you know, thank Ken Bloom for inventing this instrument, and you know, really appreciate that after a long search for an instrument that could be have a tone that was as a decent, you know, a decent tone, rather than all of the practice instruments and electronic cellos and all the stuff that I've heard recently, the little travel cellos and, you know, but particularly, you know, electric cellos and all of the sonic advances they offer. What they all lacked for me was decent tone. And this instrument has a decent tone, it's just simply not as loud as a cello. But that's fine, because I'm not playing solo recitals in concert halls very often. And if I do need to be that loud, well, I've got a microphone that can be put in front of the instrument. Problem solved. So there we go. That's about as, you know, that's an overview of the instrument for you. Hopefully it will help to clarify any sort of issues, or maybe some of the sort of question marks that were in your head about, is this the right step for me? As I said, keep an open mind, and you will probably enjoy it very much as I have. It's opened up whole new territories of both music that I can play, sonics that I can, and plus the convenience of the instrument. I can throw this into a gig bag, a guitar gig bag, and go over to my friends and have a play. And I can achieve the ultimate cellist dream. I can sit on the couch and play. Amazing. You know, who would have ever thought that we wouldn't need some special stupid ergonomic seat to sit on? We could actually sit places that were comfortable for long periods, like the rest of the world has enjoyed for ages. So there you go. Maybe that's the final caveat for you. Thanks very much. This is me signing off, and enjoy your playing, and please check out Ken's work. It's great, and he's a lovely man. Speak soon. Bye.